to touch on negotiations because talking about money is a very uncomfortable subject, no matter which side you're on, whether you're the one paying somebody or whether you're the one like asking for money back. It's just an uncomfortable conversation. So we'll go back through and tell you where we're going to be working when we finish school in a week, where we'll be working and how we negotiated those offers.
Okay, so I was going to start during my freshman year, which is when I realized how important negotiating was. So at my first internship, I was in a group with a bunch of other students. I was on one team, but we're surrounded by other teams, all of students. Basically, they ran out of room for interns, so we were all in the cafeteria in like these cubicles. But anyway, on one day, everyone's going around and saying like, oh, my salary is this. I make this much per hour. And everyone was going around and saying what number they made, and they were all within the same range. But then I realized I was getting significantly less. And then when I said that, the game ended and everyone just like stopped talking about it because they realized there was like this discrepancy. And in that moment, I learned like it is really important to advocate for yourself when you are like in these conversations, because the worst they can say is no when you're negotiating salary. But in terms of like fast forwarding 3 years, when I was negotiating for my role at Google, initially I tried for a higher salary, and she said, oh no, like we cap it at this, not possible at this time. But I made a case and I outlined I have these skills from all these different internships and kind of matched them up with the job description. And even though she said no initially, 3 months later, they said, oh, we reevaluated your application. We're actually going to give you a bit more. So can you re-sign your offer letter? And I thought that was super cool. So even if you get a no right now, it isn't always a no forever.
But basically, like the way I understood it, and I also learned like during one of my internships when we were talking about salaries, is I was getting under to my peers that recruiters are not always your friend. And when it comes to like bringing you on board and discussing salary, they usually try to undercut you, at least from my experience at the places I worked at. And so for me, what I did, at least like for my full-time offer, I used like the following like steps that really worked well for me and for my friends that we also discussed it. Is first, like you need to consider what type of leverage you have. They bring you the offer and they're gonna tell you, okay, we're gonna be paying you this much base, this much RSU, and this much sign-on bonus, which is the usual like typical breakdown. And what you need to do is first, if you do have a counter offer, can you guys still hear me? Okay, sorry. If you do have a counter offer, then definitely bring that on board and tell them, okay, this is how much I was offered from this company. Is there a way that you guys could match that? A lot of times, however, you might not have a counter offer from another company, like what happened to me. Well, in that case, I talked to one of my friends who already signed and was getting paid more than me. And I said, look, I know this person. We have the same qualifications, we have the same background. Why is she getting paid more than me? Is there a way that could be matched? The third option is go on popular website like levels.fyi is great for seeing how much money are people getting paid in different levels in like I think the most popular like 50 computer science companies, and then try to argue that you should also be getting matched that salary and bring up anything that you can. Like for me, I talked about the things I did in my internships that I thought were valuable. The fact that I'm getting a master's degree, like just like lay it out on all these different things on them during a phone call. It's preferable, not more than over an email. And afterwards, like hang up, say thank you. Like I really I'm looking forward to this job. It would just be great if you guys could meet these different requirements I have. Give them like a few days to talk to their managers, to their HR, to the rest of HR. And when they get back to you, even if they don't meet you like exactly where you want them to, I found that one thing that really works well, be like, okay, that's great. Like, I really appreciate this offer. If you guys could just match me on this one last thing, then I will sign immediately. Because a lot of times they actually want to bring you on board as soon as possible, because that way they have guaranteed that they have a certain headcount of employees that they can expect. Versus if you just keep going back and forth for weeks, then they don't know if you're going to leave to a different company. And I would always try to argue with them, because I know that even sometimes when it's like for internships, like they might tell you that they don't actually negotiate, but like a lot of times they will, because they do want to bring you on board. They went through all this effort to already like recruit you. They spent thousands, literally sometimes they spend thousands of dollars on flying you out, on interviewing you, like booking an entire day. So they do want to bring you on board, especially when they make you the offer. So negotiating a few thousand or a few 10,000 like is worth it. And like for me, it actually ended up being almost a $50,000 difference that if I didn't say anything. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, I want to add to that. Like, so what I was saying was, like, do your research, like what Anna was saying. Definitely go to those websites, see like the ranges that people are getting paid if you don't have a friend that's in your industry. And also just have a clear understanding of your job description. Like, understand what you're doing, what you've applied for, and what the job requirements are. Because that also too might play a part into the salary you might get versus who somebody else might get. Because if they're like a software developer and they're coding all day and you're like, I don't know, software engineer that's not coding as much, but so there might be a discrepancy in payments there. But like still fight for what you think you're worth. But also too, there's a way to do it, like speaking to HR and not your boss. So if you have an interview with the manager, don't ask the manager at the end when they say, do you have any more questions? Yeah, by the way, how much am I getting paid? No, like that's a question that you want to ask like HR later when they call you and say, hey, so we've offered you and said like, this is what you were willing to give you. Do you want to accept? And then that's like a time when you can negotiate it. But it would be not the best idea to ask the manager right then and there if he asks, like ask questions about the job, learn more about the job and see if you want to work there. Always ask questions no matter what. And just in general, like read your contract thoroughly wherever you go, because sometimes too they might give you a base salary and then you see like if you work overtime then you might get paid more, or if there's training you get paid like $50 an hour or something like that. So you might see that there's other things that play into the base salary that you get. So just look into that, and then also too you get the signing bonus.